brings me to today's discussion, the whole idea of Labor Day, right? So my personal opinion is that the laboring involved to make this vMix software work properly, as it's supposed to work, it doesn't. Which means the labor that these people are putting into this software and the people they have working on it really are not paying attention to how the software should be working and how it should continuously work without too many hiccups. I hope that makes sense out there. But that's how I feel about that. I think it's very labor intensive to write code and do certain things for software. But again, that's supposed to be their labor that's involved to create this. That's what you pay for. You pay for their labor to do the things that it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. And that's not working. And it's not because I'm complicating the podcast. It's because the software that they sell that I purchased is supposed to do those exact things. We'll get into the discussion another time about how I feel about the things that people actually do to make things work once there's more than, once there's other people involved to make sure it works properly, right? Because we all know that the only errors are human errors, right? Because computers can only do exactly what they're told to do. That's their labor. Their labor is exactly to emulate whatever it is. Well, now with AI is a little different, but still the AI exists because a human put it in to a chip to make the computer think for itself. And that's a funny thing. Not funny like haha, but funny like, hey, what are you doing? You driving everybody mad. And that's what I'm working on. So just bear with me. And we'll eventually get this all solved. I'm sure of it. That's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me. All right. So I'm going to go through some of these things right here to make sure everything is working. And listen to me. I know, happy Labor Day to everybody out there. And if you don't know, this is the Everything and Nothing podcast with your boy from Brooklyn, Shannon Ambrosio. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel down there. Subscribe. So, and ring the bell. So you get notified the next time I put a video up, or I'm live streaming. So that's always a good thing to do, right? Just ring that bell right down there, right there. And if you like it, throw a thumbs up there for your boy. You heard? And please share this with anybody right now before the podcast gets started, so that this way we can get a couple, few, 2, 3, maybe more. Who knows? I don't know. If you share this out there now, or after it's done, we'll get more people involved. We can open up dialogue and start conversations about things that are going on. All right? That's it. That's how it works. Any questions and comments, please, by all means, leave them down in the description. Leave them in the comments below. And we can open up the dialogue, not just with myself and whoever leaves the comment, but everybody else that's in this community now, okay? So do that right there. Leave it down in there. Leave any suggestions or comments right down there below. And if you need to find me on any of my social media, all the links are down in the description below. Okay? Just go check them out. You heard? And if you want, you can go over there right there and check out the audio on my podcast if you don't want to watch it on YouTube or the Rumble. Right there, because I'm on the Rumble too. I have to add that the link to the Rumble is in the description, but you can find me anywhere. That's just how it is, right? And if you want, leave one of those down there. Leave a super. If you feel like soup, man, leave a super chat right there. And these are my other 2 channels right here. Go over there and check them out. I do some cooking. I do some building and fixing. Maybe you get a kick out of it. Maybe you won't. Who knows? I don't know. You got to figure that out. That's up to you. And that's about it. So this is a holiday weekend here in the United States, in the U.S. But in other countries, there are Labor Days, or we have it started out not as necessarily Labor Days. It was a Labor Day movement is what started all this, but it was actually called MEIDA. And MEIDA, right, the whole idea is that, May we have Memorial Day, but Labor Day is different. So the idea is Labor Day used to be May Day, and I think they changed it because of Memorial Day, whatever it is. I don't know. But that's how it all started. It all started for the labor movements here in this country the injustices, I talk about this a lot, the injustices done to all of us, we the people, and the fact that they had nationwide, they didn't have any real labor laws in place. So basically, if you went to work for somebody, you went and got a job because you needed, this whole new thing that they started was currency. You needed to have some kind of work to provide a living for yourself and if you have a family. So Labor Day was created because people collectively got together and started the idea of union. The unionization of labor is how this all started. There used to be really just one big labor, national labor union, and everybody basically belonged to it. And the idea is that you had certain individuals that spoke up for the idea of labor. It wasn't necessarily a government thing. It became that later on, right? So we all know if you're a tradesman and you belong to the union. Back in the day when I was in the union, in the carpenters union, each union was owned separately. That's why it was called your local. It was called whatever your local was. You were part of a local, and that was your local union organization. So the idea is that it was done by a specific either trade or group of people that did something collectively. So that's the reason we did it. And the injustices that were served by the government towards the citizens and the labor they provided. My goodness, where it's gone till today, and the idea of taxation is totally ridiculous. I hope everybody understands this out there, is that taxation for labor is illegal. It's totally 100% legal according to the Constitution, and that's every country's founded on a Constitution. Well, ours a lot more because of the fact that we the people created this country, and we the people are the ones that supposedly create all the things that need to be in place for all of us at one given time. We know that's not the case anymore because, believe me when I tell you, government has taken over. At this point here in the United States, there is no difference between ruling and elected officials as far up as the president and so on and so forth. Most of the government officials, after what they have elections for, are appointed positions, which to me is totally unlawful, totally unconstitutional. So in other words, anybody who gets appointed to an office that has any say or jurisdiction over we the people is a false job created by somebody to give somebody money so for no reason. I don't understand that. But that's how I feel about those things. So on this Labor Day, I hope that everybody out there is not, and we know that it's different now, but not laboring, right? So that's the idea. The idea is there was supposed to be a national holiday where we didn't labor. We didn't, us as a nation kind of said, hey, we need a break. So, chill. Get your barbecues out right there. You know how it is. Keep your meat moist for sure. And this way, everybody gets to relax at the same time. Nobody feels indifferent. Nobody is laboring while everybody else is not. So that was the idea of what this was supposed to be. What it's turned into is a circus, is a sham, is a scam, is it's totally ridiculous. Because they have Labor Day sales and stores and people running out to restaurants. My goodness, we all need to understand that there are certain things that are created. And even though this isn't like, it wasn't a constitutional thing, like in the Constitution, they didn't say, well, there'll be one day or one weekend where everybody gets off. We, the people, just had an understanding that it was important enough for us to say, yo, hold on a second. Hold on 1 minute right here. We're going to, today, this weekend, or whatever the day is, we're not going to do anything. Which means everybody should just be relaxing and enjoying themselves. I mean, that's really the explanation of it. But, like I said, I digress. So let's kind of go through this thing. I listen to a lot of views and news based around the world now, right? Because I think originally we all had this mindset that we really don't have to be so burdened with things that are happening globally as much as we need to worry about what's happening here for us in this, in this nation, in the United States. So But now, because we have the internet and we have computers and we have these things so we can communicate and collectively think about things together and open up dialogue about the entire globe, not just what's happening here. Well, I mean, we need to concentrate a lot on what's happening locally to us or for us. But the idea is that systemically, the governments around the globe are all doing the same thing to their citizens, we the people. They're all trying to capitalize and control us all at any given time, no matter what, by controversy, by distraction, by whatever it is that they can figure out that could keep our minds occupied enough that we don't realize what's going on. The amount of control that's being gained by governments and being lost by we the people. That I think we really need to be conscious of things that are happening globally now, because it will affect us all eventually. So there's a gentleman has a channel, Neil Oliver, Great Britain News, and I really enjoyed what he had to say recently about what's going on. So let's see if we can get right into this, and we'll talk about it. What do you think? What do you think? I think that's a good idea. You heard? So let's see what's going on. That's the truth right there. So let's see if it's going to work. And this gentleman's name is Neil Oliver. He has a station. I have the link below in the description, which you can watch some of his other content. He's really fascinating in the idea that he pays attention to a lot of things that are going on. And he's just got a good message. So let's butter our sausage.
ULEZ is the flicking tail on the elephant in the room, the monstrous beast that is Agenda 21, a plan for one world government, misrepresented as good news. For those thinking it's about the year 2021 and that we've missed the deadline, Agenda 21 is a plan for the whole of the 21st century. Whatever the puppet government and the puppet opposition say about anything is always and only to distract from the real plan and therefore the real threat to our freedom and way of life. The misdirection and downright lying infect and corrupt every aspect of life. Otto von Bismarck is credited with saying, "The less people know about how laws and sausages are made, the better they'll sleep at night."
Buttered sausage. Talk about buttered sausage, where it comes from, what it does. Why is it doing what it's doing? Get it out of my face. What about buttered sausage?
That depends on whether you want to be asleep or awake, however uncomfortably. The sleepiness is everywhere. A long process of miseducation at school and a forced diet of propaganda for the rest of the time has, for instance, seen to the rearing of a population that either thinks money and the economy are too complicated for them to understand, or has accepted the furry end of the lollipop stick handed.
Now, the idea that the governments think that, here's my opinion, is that the fact that I know the governments know that we're smart enough to realize what's going on because of the amount of information that is out there now. That is why currently, globally, whichever nation you belong to or want to belong to, most of the mainstream media that's allowed to be pushed towards us and at us is propaganda. They're basically, the mainstream medias are working, mainstream media's corporations are working hand in hand with governments to create these unofficial or these unattended ideas and ideals that they tell us we have to do. And it all starts with the idea of the shade that they give in front of us, right? They give us all these different things to distract us and throw us off course, right? So that we don't really think about how much they're taking advantage of us, especially when it comes to labor laws, especially when it comes to taxes. That is the whole idea of labor. A labor tax was created so that the government had the ability to basically control the labor of its citizens. So in other words, they say, you go do a job somewhere, and that's going to provide you with a money that we created that you'll just give back to us for whatever the reason may be. It's a funny and a really twisted, idealistic view on a country and its people, right? That the citizens owe something. We, the people, owe something to governments. That they're different than us. That they created us. That they have the ability to tell us what to do and how to do it, where to do it, and all these things. It's very important that we, the people, understand that our labor has to be, listen to me, the pursuit of happiness doesn't necessarily mean you need to be running around in a field of poppies, jumping around all the time doing nothing. It means that you should find the happiness in your life and the things that you do that provide moderate to advanced society to keep moving along. Not so that governments and government so-called elected or people have an advantage over the rest of the people. It just doesn't work that way. And by the way, Gary Busey's just an amazing individual. And in case you don't know, you should butter your sausage. Just get your sausage buttered right there, you heard? And there's a funny thing, and I'll get into this later about the agendas and this green economy that they're trying to push on everybody, and the fact that that's part of their the government's agendas, is that they're fooling us with this idea of this green economy, which is a made-up thing. And this Agenda 21, it started so long ago, most people don't even know it exists. That's the funniest part about it, is that all these things that they create to create the control over us, is that they don't make us, we the people, privy to it. Or if they do let it out into the public, you can find a lot of these things online if you're looking hard enough and in the places that they don't want you to look. You know, it's like the change that falls in the couch right there. Yeah, it's like, unless you're really looking in the couch to find it, you may not even know there's any change in there, right? But you have to look. You have to look.
To them by the powers that be. Inflation. What they would have us believe is to blame for the cost of living crisis, which is really a cost of lockdown crisis, is caused always and only by government working hand in glove with the banks to make themselves rich and everyone else poor. Inflation is caused always and only by the printing of money.
You have to get that, and I think you have to absorb it a lot more so you understand it. Money and currency is created so that they have the power to decide how much we, the people, actually have at any given time and what its value is. So when they create these problems, like COVID lockdowns, like economy spikes and lulls, it's a way for them to control how we spend and how we think about currency. So when they created that lockdown for the pandemic, they made things logistically hard to come by making people stay home. So what happens when those things take place? So the idea of getting a product becomes much harder. So then what happens to the value of the product? It becomes much more expensive. And then what happens to the value of the money that the citizens currently have? It becomes less, because you're not working to gain more value for what it is that you are doing, your labor. So they devalue your labor as to like, well, you're not working, so there's no way for you to, create an income to purchase anything to survive, because they charge you for gas, electric, gas in your car, rents, mortgages, insurances, health. It gets to be, it's very obtrusive in the direction that you actually should be thinking about, right? So you should be thinking about taking care of yourself, being productive in society, and maybe having a family if you wish one day, and maybe owning some property, and maybe owning a home, and maybe owning a car, and all those things. But when the governments create these issues and these problems to devalue what it is that we do, we the people, and then the value of what they give us for what our labor is, it becomes so small that it's harder and harder to reach any types of goals. And that's exactly what the governments are trying to do, 100%.
Quantitative easing, as they have called it most recently, although dodgy types alighted on the tactic thousands of years ago to keep their subjects poor, is a transparent attempt to disguise a Ponzi scheme, the Ponzi scheme being modern currencies, which is the conjuring into existence of money from nothing, which only banks are allowed to do. Every time they magic up more money, put more of the currency into circulation in whatever form, what they actually do, in fact, all they do, is devalue any money you had in your pocket or in savings. This.
Do you think that the governments really care about the citizens or we the people when they do foolish things like that, locking everybody down, telling people that when you go to the grocery stores or you go to a store, a retail store of any kind, the value of the product has gone up at least 3 times the amount of money it was 3 years ago. But the hard part is that they devalue your labor by either having you stay at home or devaluing the idea of what it is that you do to create that income to survive for yourself and your family. So in other words, when the AI starts to take over and all these things become done remotely, packages dropped off by drones and robot trucks and cars, and no more truck drivers, no more logistic people working in warehouses to package products, no more workers that actually have to be present at a location or a job or even work at home to provide these services, because they will eventually have thought of a way to devalue the actual person. Once the person becomes devalued, and there is no way for a person, a human being, to understand their value and what it is they can provide for themselves and their family, that's it. The government takes over. There is nothing else. So there will be no more decision making on anybody's part. You have to think about these things. And I know it's a deep conversation that you have to have with yourself first. And then after that, then we the people can start discussing these things openly. Let's do this. How are we going to do that? We are going to make sure that we leave all the questions and comments down below over there about what you think is going on, about the way they treat us and the labor that we provide to build the nations that we live in, that these government officials and these government so-called elected people, that we give them. We give them this power. And then everybody wonders why. Hey, I don't understand why these things are happening. But we all really do understand why they're happening. Because we are giving up the control of our own lives in hopes and prayers that maybe the government may help us. Maybe not. I mean, my personal opinion is they're not going to, because they are.
Oh, hello.
That's just my thing, is that
Oh, hell no.
they're not going to. They're not going to give us any heads up. That's the layman's term. They're not going to give us any heads up. They're not going to say, hey, listen to me. We're thinking about within the next this, and this, these jobs or these things may be gone. So we have to start thinking about this. That's what they used to say, learn to code, right? But
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
most people think that coding and stuff that's done for computer usage like we're doing now is done magically. I mean, it is now, right, because of AI. But there was a time when the idea is that there was code. There's always code code needed to be written. And that's the reason why they used to say, well, if you can't find a job, learn the code. That's what they used to tell people when they got displaced from jobs, that everybody thought would always be there. And I know it's very hard to believe, right? But the Teamsters Union is a huge union, and it's all over the place in the United States. But the idea is that when the Teamsters for truck driving and logistics are no longer needed, what happens? What happens to all those people? What happens to their families? What happens to the homes they own? Holy cow. I don't even want to get into this whole idea of what happened in Hawaii over there. That is not a tragedy. That is a travesty. So in other words, it was caused. It was created. We all need to start thinking about these things, because it's not going to, you know these people that are doing these things, right?
What's your name, scumbag?
Yeah. And the funny thing is that we all know their names. We all know their names, and we're not paying attention to it. So we're kind of turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to all these things that are happening, because I think we're ferociously looking to run away from heading it face on. It's I know a lot of people don't want to think of it this way, but it's gonna start getting a lot worse much faster than it is going to get better. And I think we all need to be prepared, especially in times like this and on holidays that represent something that the government doesn't even stand for anymore. They're not even proclaiming that citizens are citizens anymore. They're treating us even less than that. So that's something we all need to think about.
Is deliberate. This is why excess money is created in the first place. Just as a for instance, since the creation of the so-called Federal Reserve in the United States in 1913, which is not federal, being a private company run for profit by secretive bankers and holds...
How the heck can the Federal Reserve, these are the people that, listen to me, governments create the money that we use. I don't know what else needs to be said. They create the money we use. So in other words, if they decide, they want to give out more money to whoever they want to give it to, they just print it. It's that simple, but not even anymore. You don't even have to print the money anymore. That's going to be gone. The money thing is going to be gone soon. I hope everybody understands that. Once it goes to digital currency, you can kiss your freedoms and your life goodbye. That's the end of it. There will be nothing else. There will be just controlled, and that will be the end of it. So when you think about these sections of government that they tell us, right? There's an abbreviation, there's a letter, there's a number, there's something for everything that the government wants to create to take from us. They don't create anything to do better for us. They only create things to take away from us. That's the truth. So they create Federal Reserves, they create DOHs, DCDs, they create FBIs, they create all these situations and all these people. I know I've said this before. Please listen to me for a minute. They are the strongest mafia there is. Any government in any country is the strongest mafia there is. That's why that's why they call everything else and anybody else who doesn't want to buy into their nonsense organized crime. They don't call themselves organized crime. They call themselves a government. That's very funny. It's extreme. It's hypnotizing. It's funny how they use the words, but the meaning is the same. We do that in the English language, right? We create all these different words. We create words that sound the same, but then they mean something different. The government is the same as the mafia, 100%. There is nothing else, right? They have large armies, police, agents, FBIs, CIAs, SOBs. They got all kinds of agencies that it's just a ridiculous sense of security. It's a false sense of security that they think they're making we the people, they're making us feel safe about something. They're not making us feel safe about anything, right? Absolutely nothing. They create these organizations to control us for whatever it is that they want to take from us. So they create these agencies, and then they're like, well, the agency's there for your protection so that what? So when the IRS shows up at your house and they go, listen to me, you didn't pay enough taxes last year, you got to give us more money. I go, listen to me, shouldn't be paying you any taxes. You shouldn't be getting anything. As a matter of fact, you guys shouldn't even be working. You don't need a job. You don't need a job to make sure that I'm making enough money to give to you. That is insanity. So in other words, the government creates an organization and an agency that decides whether we the people, right here, we provide labor and we get income from it. And then the government decides if you're giving them enough of their cut by creating these agencies and then holding you accountable for whatever number they want to make up. It just doesn't work. It'll never work in we the people or the citizens' favor. It can never, because they have too many people trying to control us for too many things at one time, right? DMVs, IRSs, it goes on beyond what anybody could even comprehend, the amount of agencies the government creates in order to take something from its people. Get smart, folks. Pay attention.
A reserve of precisely nothing, the actual value of the dollar has fallen by at least 90, if not actually 98%. Inflation is the invisible tax.
Do you hear that? The invisible tax. That's why I've been saying lately is that when you go to the store and you go to buy something now, if you don't have as much money as you did before because of all the things that have been going on, and then you have to purchase an item or a good or a product or a service that is now at least the minimum 3 times as much as it was 3 years ago, that is not inflation. That's basically thievery. They're basically stealing. They gave corporations enough power so that they're the ones controlling the amount of money that's moving around. And that's horrible. It's supposed to be the opposite. It's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be that we, the people, the citizens of a nation, create a labor in order to stay productive and have society grow in every way, shape, or form it possibly can. By then, we, the people, taking the income that we earn from our labor and going out into the rest of the citizens, and now we basically should be sharing this money, right? You need a service or a good that I have, and we exchange. But it doesn't happen that way anymore because everything has become so expensive that everybody puts themselves in debt to do anything. You're in debt when you buy a house, rent a friggin' apartment, buy a car, motorcycle, boat. It doesn't matter anymore as to what it is, the value. There's no value in anything because basically you can take it and then you owe. You owe. Nothing ever gets paid for. That's why they have to do away with cash. That's why they're going to do away with the currency that we use. Because our currency is, and any currency really, I don't know around the world, but any currency here other than paper money is false. It's a credit. It's not a debt. You're not finalizing a debt. So in other words, when you use a credit card or you use a debit card or whatever it is, it's just a transfer of credits. So that's why our economy is crap. And our ceiling in debt to ratio of what people make is astronomical. It just is. You would have to. Everybody would at some point. It's going to be funny because at some point everybody here in this country is going to be a millionaire because money isn't going to have a value because it's just an exchange of a credit system. It just keeps moving along, right? Because before there was a credit system, there's no debt here. In America, there's no debt, and the government didn't like that. The government didn't like the fact that there was no debt because people were paying for things, and paying for things amongst each other. So, not even 100 years ago, or close to 100 years ago, you went and bought a house. You went and hired a builder, right? And the builder said it would cost this much to build this house, and basically you had to have almost all the money in cash, and then you bought the house. They built it. They were like, okay, that house is $15,000. And you handed them $15,000. And all of a sudden they were like, well, and not everybody has that kind of money in the beginning, right? Because nobody was earning a tremendous amount of money. But the idea of the value was there. So in other words, when you bought a house 100 years ago and it was a beautiful home constructed and you paid, 10,000, whatever it was cheap. It wasn't like it is now because the value of the money was different. The value of the labor was different. The value of the money was different. So everybody understood that. They were like, yo, that's hard work, blah, blah, blah. That should be worth this much money. And that was it. And everybody had an understanding. They knew that, right? If you wanted something that was more money than what you made, you learned to save. That's number one. And number two, you learn to do without certain things until you could have them. That's the end of it. We didn't think about things the same way.
I'll say that again for emphasis. The invisible tax. Almost everyone has been tricked into not seeing, far less being angry about. The same trick, a trick that would be illegal if any of us tried it, is pulled here in Britain by our own central bank, the Bank of England, and by central banks around the world, all of them in service to the Bank for International Settlements, in splendid isolation in Geneva, in Switzerland, where none of us can affect its operation in any way. Our government, everyone's government, be it nominally democratic, fascist, totalitarian, communist, or monster raving loony, it makes no difference, uses banks to put people into debt and then continuously devalues the currency by creating more money, always out of nowhere, and so making it harder and harder, all but impossible in fact, for anyone ever to be free of that debt.
Ever. Do you realize that here in this country, if you owe debts, I'm just using this as a drastic show so we can understand how this works, is that they have us all hoodwinked to the point where if you have a credit card or when you get a credit card, or let's say a mortgage, or you have a loan, student loans, I don't care what it is, whatever it is. Or every bank here in this country is federally backed. Even when we see stuff like we have TD Bank, which is basically a Canadian bank, or we have other country banks in here, the idea of the money and the value of the money and what it is worth inside the bank, we all know that there's not, if your bank lends you, if you go to a bank and they lend you $6 million, they don't have $6 million in the vault to give you. They just give you a piece of paper that says it because it's federally backed. That's the idea. The idea is that the government federally backs it. How is it that the banks can federally back money that's not theirs? How's that possible? How's that possible that they have, let's just use a round figure, that there's 100 people in that community and there's a bank there and the 100 people put $1,000 in there. So there's $100,000 in there. How is that the federal bank's money? It's not the federal bank's money at all, not even a little bit. But the bank has to have that money backed in case of an emergency, right? That was the idea. They got everybody put their money in the banks because they were like, hey, listen to me, we're going to make it safe for you. I told you this. They will fool all of us all of the time by telling us they do the things they do for our safety. We know it's not true. It's not for our safety. It's so that they can make money. So then what they do, right? Because I think everybody should be learning at this point that we all know that banks are they're basically they're Shylocks, right? So they're basically loaning you money and then they create a payment with interest. It's we the people's money. How come they're making the money on the interest? How come we the people are not making the money? You can't go to a bank now and deposit your money and get a decent interest rate on the money that you put in the bank because they don't give you any. It's like almost nothing. It's not worth it to even put your money in the bank anymore. So the idea is that they loan we the people's money out and then they make money on it. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. They don't ask us if they can loan it out. They just loan it out. And as a matter of fact, they'll loan it back to you. They'll loan you your own money and then charge you interest. At this point, for this Labor Day 2023, I really think most people should just, at this point, we should all be smart enough to understand that we all should go into our places of employment at this point in this stage of the game and basically say to them, stop taking taxes out of my check. Stop it immediately. Again, you make $25 an hour, make sure your boss pays you $25 an hour. At the end of the year, If you want to give something to the government so that they can earn a living and they're supposed to be representing you, then you decide how much you want to pay them. Not whatever they take and then give you the leftovers. That's not how it should work. And then you should go to the banks and take out all your money, all of it. I'll tell you what, you won't be allowed to. That's number one. And number two, if they do give you your money, they're going to give it to you on a piece of paper. They're going to tell you, here's a check. So you have to go to another bank. This is the way it works. You have to go to another bank in order to put it in there. And then they'll tell you the same thing when you tell them and you need your money. Oh no, we just give you a banker's check. I said, I didn't put a banker's check in here. I put cash in here. I put my labor money inside this bank. I would like it. They won't give it to you. I will guarantee it. Try it. If you have a decent amount, and not me, if you have a decent amount of money inside the bank, go there over the next week and tell them you need your money. Today, I need it right now. Like I need it right away. And they'll tell you no. They'll tell you no. Sorry, can't do that. We have to give you a banker's check, or you have to wait. And then they'll tell you have to fill out 1, 2, maybe 17 pieces of paper in order to get your money. What kind of nonsense is that? Well, they just took your money. They don't care. Bring it here. Listen, bring your money here. It'll be safe. No, it won't. It ain't going to be safe. It'll be safe enough for them to take it and you won't know about it. How about that one?
If all debt was repaid, all money would vanish. You heard me right. If you understand that much, you understand the money flow of the world. This stuff is hiding in plain sight, but so easy to understand when you bother to look at it. And I say that as someone who got a C in maths. It's easy to understand, but only if you don't look over there at the suspicious wildfires in Greece and the incomprehensible fires in Maui and the wildly lucrative war in Ukraine and a new COVID variant and the migrants being shepherded ashore every day and used most recently to displace students from their booked and paid for accommodation to sow more fury. If you don't look over there at all that, or when you do understand it for what it is, distraction gone awry, but back here instead, where the pretend government is cooking the books and selling Britain down the river, once you see it, you can't believe you've overlooked it for so long. I said most of the value of the dollar has been wiped out. So too that of the pound, the euro, you name it. The national currencies around the world are Ponzi schemes, teetering on the brink of collapse and held up only by malpractice and lies. The next step, maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow, but when the people think they can't take any more uncertainty, will be central bank digital currencies.
Listen, I speak about this a lot. This digital currency, when it happens, I don't know when, but it's getting closer. Because there's been kind of a lull about it recently, right? So in other words, we're not hearing much anymore about like Bitcoin, different types of digital currencies. We're not hearing much about it anymore. It used to be the whole Bitcoin thing and that was really on an uprise for since COVID, since the pandemic, right? It really went on that uprise right before and then during. And everybody talks about this whole thing, the digital currency, CDCs, whatever it may be, and with the value and with the devalue, what it's worth, what it is. I wish I had a Bitcoin when it first came out, and then if you had lost your login credentials, you couldn't get it, but it was worth $1 million. Listen to me, people. The idea of this is all the smoke and mirror show. It's the cloak and dagger. It's the whole thing. It's all those things that they don't want us to see the actuality of what's happening. So they want us to see. They want us to know that it is going to happen, that the governments will eventually change our currencies to digital, and that they will control it 100%. So right now, it's the old adage, it's the calm before the storm, okay? Because we have an election coming up next year. So all of these things by next year will be coming to a head. So in other words, digital currencies, they're finally going to, I think, establish some kind of digital currency, or here's the best part, if it even does happen, or they decide, no, this ain't happening. In other words, all you Bitcoin people, all you people with this digital, whatever the heck you have all over the place, do yourselves a favor. Try and get out of it now. Because if you don't, you're going to lose it all. Because there's no value. There's nothing. There's nothing backing it. I don't know what the understanding is. I can't speak scientifically or economically what it is. But to me, it doesn't mean anything. Because it's basically what the idea with digital currency was supposed to be was it was supposed to erase the idea of the government being involved with interactions between we the people. The idea was the digital currency was created so that we the people would not have to be notifying the governments and paying taxes and all these other things because of the digital currency, because the digital currency allowed us to make transactions like how it was in the beginning when they created the dollar, was that you can make a transaction with somebody with this money that the government created. But the idea was is you could be direct. Like, in other words, you wouldn't have to go be traipsing big barrels of gold or, trading goats for for cows and all this stuff. So they were like, we can create a currency so that we can make the exchange of goods easier, so it's more personal between person to person. It made a lot of sense. So the idea of creating a digital currency, it eliminates that. Even though we think it didn't, because the digital currency we thought was, oh, this is great because I can put it on my phone and then I can go over to another phone and I can pay them part of whatever my digital, whatever it is. But the problem with that is that anything that's here, anything that's on the computer or whatever it is, can be controlled by somebody. We see it with the banks. The banks is the perfect example, right? And I know from experience, right? So you owe somebody a debt somewhere and they put a levy on your account. Listen to me right now. They take it. They don't ask. They go directly to the bank. Here again, I'm going to go back to this. Do you know why they can do that? Because it's owned by the government. Here we go. Let's try this again. The bank's owned by the government. And it shouldn't be that way. So in other words, the banks only exist. Here, let's try this. Banks only exist because we, the people, put money in them. In other words, it's not like a bank opens up and the government says, all right, here you go. Here's a $1 trillion marker. No, it doesn't work that way. Because then the government would be broke. If the government gave everybody, a banknote or a VIG, or they created a loan and then created a VIG, it would never work because they would never have money, because the only way the government has money is from us. From we the people. They only have money because of that. So when you're throwing your money in the bank or you're borrowing money, it's yours. It shouldn't work that way. If you understand what I mean, that has to be done away with. So the idea of the digital currency is going to do away with that whole thing, right? So you won't be able to go to a local bank or whatever it is you may be and go and get a loan, because the government will be directly involved at that point. And basically the government will say, well, according to your job or whatever it is, like they do it in the bank with the papers too. But if you have it's in your local area and you have a good relationship with people, we the people want to see other we the people do good. We're very, hey, listen, we're all connected, right? The idea is that you don't want any one person to unnecessarily be worse off than any other person. I know it's true. I know it is. In my heart and soul, I know that that's the way we feel about each other. How other, certain people act is differently. But collectively, I think that's the truth. That's why we're all community-based people. We like to be around each other for the most part.
And here we get back to the monster, the elephant in the room that most neither acknowledge nor talk about. Indeed, that most don't even see, which is Agenda 21. ULEZ is part of Agenda 21. CBDC is part of it. Digital ID is part of it. Surveillance cameras and checkpoints are part of it. 15-minute ghettos are part of it. Cycle lanes are part of it. The devaluing of money is part of the softening up. The ever-increasing debt is part of that. The stoking of anxiety, of fear, of hatred of other, climate crisis and forever war, all about destroying the old and ushering in the new. In 1992, in Rio de Janeiro, 179 countries agreed plans for a sustainable future for planet Earth.
A sustainable future for the planet Earth. Agenda 21. A sustainable planet. Are we listening to this? That human beings are telling other human beings that they can create a way. I know a lot of people are going to look funny when they say this. So people, other human beings, are saying that they can create a way to make the planet self-sustainable. You have to be so ignorantly unaware of how things work. We humans do not, and cannot control what planet Earth does. Most part, right? The idea is that everything's going into the ozone layer and it's creating all this havoc. Let me explain something to you. Planet Earth has been, it's been a planet much longer than human beings have ever existed on it. And believe me when I say this, when all of us are said and done and gone, because nobody gets out alive, right? This planet will still be here. It will still be here. And everybody that's on this planet presently, and I'm not just talking about human beings, I mean every existing thing on this planet currently, as we are alive now, we will be gone. And there will be other things here, whether it's humans, whether it's more dinosaurs, for whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Aliens, no aliens, whatever. The planet will still be here. This idea that they have us brainwashed, that they are trying to save the planet, and anybody else who's doing this activist stuff about saving the planet and all this green gases and go green, it's just nonsense. It's just them talking garbage. The governments are just finding out ways to take more from us and gain more control. So I know we don't realize this, but the more that they take from us, right? When it comes to taxes, when it comes to our freedoms, when it comes to all the things that we do because we're just human beings. That's it. The more that they take away from us, the more control they gain to allow us to believe this bullshit. It's bullshit. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. It's kind of a weird thing. You know, it's kind of like they create all these things and committees and councils and WHOs and TWAs and TNAs, and those are my favorite ones. But the idea is that they create these things because they're trying to keep us distracted from the fact that they just keep taking things from us, right? So they take the freedoms, they take the money, they take this, they take that, and they go, it's for your own good. And I go, what good is that? How good can that be?
Sustainable is a weasel word in this context, chosen to seduce. Just as everyone would support a project to protect puppies and kittens from cruelty, so no one would say they were opposed to sustaining life on Earth.
Who doesn't like puppies and kittens? You have to be some kind of I don't know what the hell you got to be if you don't like puppies and kittens.
Sustainable in the hands of the authors of Agenda 21, however, is dread-laden and means your way of life, my way of life, and the way of life you'd hoped for your children is unsustainable and forbidden. In summary, the way of life that has been described as middle class is, according to those pushing Agenda 21, unsustainable and must end. The usual mouthpieces of the mainstream will dismiss this as conspiracy theory, but what is undeniable is that it's out there in plain sight. There's even a 344-page book available on Amazon called Agenda 21, Earth Summit, the United Nations Programme of Action from...
I know we don't think we need to stay informed. I think that's why all these things are happening so fast and without us knowing about it. We are so focused on just trying to get through the day constantly. That seems to be the MO. It seems to be the idea that we all have, is that I just want to get through today. I just want to get to Friday. Then I want my kids are growing up. Oh, I want my kid to get to a good school and then get a good job. And I said, oh my goodness, we are creating the cycle. We create the cycle unconsciously at this point. We create the cycle because they tell us that's what we have to do. They told us the American dream, and any other country has a name for what they call it too, right? We call it the American dream because it's America, right? The idea of it is that anything is possible here. Anything is possible anywhere. Anything is possible anywhere, not just here. It's possible anywhere. It's the fact that we don't let it be possible. We don't let the fact that we know that us as human beings are sovereign and that we have all the freedom, we are given all the freedom at birth. And it's slowly but surely taken away from us as we become adults and start to do some thinking, because that's the thing they don't want us to do. They don't want us to do any of our own thinking. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is for us to realize that we're not doing any of our own thinking anymore. So that's the idea. Get up as an adult, get up in the morning, go somewhere, do some work, give us some money. Okay? Then you have children, or as a child, you get up in the morning and you go to school. We're going to teach you how to go somewhere and do something that you're going to give us money for. So we tell everybody, go get a good job so you make a lot of money. You have to make a lot of money because they take most of it. They take most of the money. Your labor you provide for whatever it is that you do, they take most of your money from your labor. You have to think about it, folks. You have to really, really think about it. In other words, stop. I say this, stop. Everybody needs to stop. Everybody needs to stop doing what it is that the government tells you to do. And I know, here we go. Leave it in the questions and comments, right? The idea is, I got to earn a living because I got to pay my bills. Everybody has to pay bills. But it doesn't have to be so far out of reach that no matter how much work you do would never be enough. They have us fooled. They're like, you're going to work till you're 65. Until, like they tried in the other countries. They raise it now. So now they're like, no, you got to work an extra 3 years or an extra 5 years. Well, shit. How much of my body and my soul has to be given? That's why it's in the title of my thumbnail in this podcast. How much money is needed? How much labor is needed in order to buy buttered sausage? And to sausage their own. You understand what I mean? So the idea is that how much labor do you have to provide in order to just survive now? It's way too much. It's way too much. And they keep setting the bar even higher. At some point, we have to stop. Have to. Not think about stopping. Stop immediately.
Rio, priced £11 and 4 pence in paperback. What someone somewhere has decided is sustainable is to be made possible by, to quote American campaigner Rosa Corey, the late great siren warning of all things Agenda 21, control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all information, and all human beings in the world.
Do you hear that, right? Wildfires in places there was never wildfires, okay? Chicken farms, cow farms, livestock farms, grain agriculture, food, Monsanto, all these things, the governments are controlling and allowing big corporations to take over these things, right? It was the idea when America was being formed that there would be no monopolization of certain things. And big business, agriculture was the first one. Agriculture was the first one. Farming was the next one. The idea is that we didn't want the government to have control of agriculture and livestock farming, because then they control every war. You look it up. Every war has been controlled, won, or lost through food. Through the idea of people, human beings, living or dying. So, do you not see? Do you not understand? Do you think this is coincidental or happening haphazardly? It's not possible. We all like to say, right, because we think in our brains about miracles, magic, all these things. Oh, it's fate, it's destiny, it's all these things. Listen, I know we all want to live in a love story, right? We all think that Romeo and Juliet was wonderful, right? It's great, yes, but nothing is done that way. Things coincidental happen for reasons, right? That's a common thing, we think, right? Things happen for a reason, but things also happen because there's a series of events that happen in order for them to happen. They don't just appear magically. And I know a lot of people are going to start going this whole thing with the faith and all this other nonsense. But the idea is that it's not. It's not. If you think logically and you think sensibly about things, coincidence means, just things happening coincidentally means right place, right time. That's all it is. Or the wrong place, wrong time. You have that's the long and short, right? So you mean to tell me that in Hawaii over there, all the kids got sent home from school for what reason? No, come on. The sirens didn't work for what reason? They didn't tell people things were happening for what reason? It's not coincidence. It's not coincidence at all.
Corey pointed out how an unholy union of corporations, non-governmental organisations and governments is pushing ever more desperately towards a world in which the entire population is concentrated in densely populated cities. What's intended is a world of public-private partnerships, what the WEF's Klaus Schwab calls stakeholder capitalism, that takes all power and decision-making away from the people and places it in the hands of entities over which we, the voting public, have zero influence, far less control.
Zero. We have zero. That guy, Charles Schwab, holy cow. He looks very strange. He acts very strange, looks very strange, and he only deals with very strange people that have this idea. All these people that are in cahoots, I don't care. Even if you go listen to this guy, people are like, well, I just go listen to because I want to hear what he has to say. Okay, so now we just go somewhere because somebody wants to talk about something that's totally irrational. Nowadays, people don't want to stand on the street, and you have to use the right pronoun and call people all different things, and there's kids shitting in litter boxes in schools. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. We're a society that refuses to listen to other citizens that are just like us, but we're okay with people in big positions in government and corporations telling us things, telling us we have to do things. Charles Schwab and the W, whatever the hell they are, is that, hey, listen, we're going to have one government, everybody's going to do what they're told, and we're going to live in those 15-minute cities. It's insane. It's insanity at its highest level, and we are becoming numb to it. Like it's a movie. Like they're playing a movie in front of us, and we don't believe it's real. You better believe it's real. It's happening. It's happening right now.
A person can easily sense the impotent wrath of Khan, wee Sadiq, as he receives the daily reports of the popular dismantling of his ULEZ infrastructure, as well as a vast majority of his surveillance cameras being put out of action by citizen soldiers. God bless you all. The legal basis of his efforts is being challenged too. Worth observing that Sadiq Khan is being embarrassed not just in front of Londoners and the wider British public, but also in front of his pals in the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, of which he has been chairman since 2021. I don't know if you know, but C40 is, according to its Wikipedia page, focused on fighting the climate crisis and driving urban action that reduces greenhouse gas emissions and climate risks.
It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. That's why they have these plans in motion already. We saw it. There's fires on that island. It's decimated. There's really nothing left. I say there's nothing left, but we all know that the elites that live there, nothing happened to them. I don't know how many people are following these things. The idea is that the internet has so much information now. I think we find it hard. We find it hard to focus on one thing at one time. So that's why they keep this information open. They like to censor it, but they keep it open enough that it keeps everybody occupied. So do we not think when these things happen, the train derailments, those big fires in the livestock farms and the agricultural farms, those are giant pieces of land that they will eventually build back up. And they're going to put people in there on these pieces of land and properties. And they're going to put us all in little silos so that they know where we are at one time, all of us. right? You don't think we're being acclimated our entire lives here in America about this idea of how the economy is how the government's going to control the economy, and who you are, what it is you do, and what your worth is. So people think that these things don't happen, and they haven't been happening, right? So let me give you an example. When they build a bridge or a tunnel somewhere, okay, they take the money from we the people, right? We the people, we pay for it, because the government doesn't have any money. Okay, so just so you know that, they print the money, but they have no way to make the money, right? Their labor doesn't provide money, so they don't do anything. So our labor provides the income that they have, that they spend. So when they build these bridges and they build these tunnels, they have tolls at the bridges and tunnels. And the idea is that the bridges and tunnels, the tolls, would put the money back into where it's supposed to be, we the people, by having a toll. Okay? You have a toll, and then after it pays back the idea of the tunnel or the bridge, the money goes back to where it's supposed to be in the reserve of whatever it is. That's made up too. But the idea was then they get rid of the toll. And basically, income tax really holds logistics for highways and whatever else. And that's the way that works. Not income tax, sales tax. So sales tax would basically cover the idea of logistic-wise. And when it comes to small towns and communities, your home taxes, parts of your home taxes are supposed to handle some of that. But when they have all these things, and then all of a sudden they don't do it anymore. So in other words, bridges and tunnels, tolls stay now. That's how it is. So they just keep the tolls, and they keep raising them. Holy cow. And they create these systems. You don't think you live in a 15-minute city? Travel away from your town or city that you live in now. You are paying a toll somewhere to get somewhere else. You're paying a toll on a bridge, in a tunnel. They create in Jersey, they have all these, you drive on a highway and then you get to a certain town. It's a certain amount of money each further you go. We are already in these types of cities and towns currently. When you go from Brooklyn to Manhattan, if you don't take the bridge, you got to pay a toll to go through a tunnel. And people are like, well, you just avoid that. And I go, holy cow. So they make the most convenient way to get somewhere, you have to pay. You have to pay. You have to pay to get there. You live in a 15-minute city now. We all live in a 15-minute city. Travel outside your city or your state. And when you get somewhere else, you have to pay to get there. And some instances, you got to pay to leave from where you are to get somewhere else. Holy cow. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous that they charge you to travel on a planet that you were born on. Listen to yourself when you hear it in your head and it says, I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay to do everything it is that I have to do to live. It's a vicious circle. It never ends. It will never end. So you know.
It's also in bed with proposals to end flying and shipping by 2050, cutting home heating, banning beef and lamb, and ending building with bricks, cement, glass and steel in favour of rammed earth, what you might call the building of mud huts.
So that's what their plan is. Their plan is to create these cities, and they're going to be using the crappiest materials they possibly can, because the government at this point will just own everything. They're going to own all. They're going to find a way to manipulate us all that they own the land. So in other words, they do it now. You buy a home, you buy the home, okay, but you don't own it. So in other words, they still tax you for the land that you are on. So in other words, you can build the most beautiful home you want, extravagant, right? You got wealthy, you got money. So all of a sudden you just build this home. And then the government says, or your town or your city or whatever it is says, you know what, you got to pay taxes on that now. And I go, wow, I don't want to pay taxes. I paid tax when I bought it. I'm not paying any more tax. And then they go, no, you got to pay the tax. And if you don't pay the tax, we'll just take this from you. So basically, we technically do not own anything. You don't own the car you drive. If everybody doesn't know that, when you go to DMV and you get a license and you get a registration, on that registration form, you just gave up your ownership. And your title says the same thing when you have a title. You go to DMV and they give you a title. Why do you let them give you a title? What do you need a title for? You have a bill of sale. You don't need a title. You have a bill of sale. The bill of sale says, I purchased this item from John Doe over there, and I gave him X amount of my dollars, and he gave me this product. It's like if you went and bought a T-shirt. You got to register your T-shirt every year. You got to take the T-shirt over to the T-shirt TMV, the T-shirt, or the apparel, the Department of Motor Vehicle. So Department of Apparel, you got to bring it over to the DA. You got to bring it over to the DA because you got to get a registration. And then you got to get insurance on that. You need insurance on your clothes. You need insurance on everything, right? Because they don't want you to own anything. Like they say, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. They're destroying the entire idea of human beings' existence.
Here's the thing. The future being discussed might permit existence for the likes of you and me, but will be no life I recognise as honourable or worth living. All together now. Tell them they can stick the whole joyless...
Right up there, you know what? That's the truth, folks. It just is. We're living in a time, I think, where there's a lot of good things that are happening to us, we the people, where we are becoming more aware and more cognizant of the things that are being done outside of what we think is our control. So I think that's a good thing. I don't know how good it is because I think my opinion is that most people, like I said, are just trying to get through the day. And then they're like, okay, I just want to get to the end of the year, and then okay, I gotta wait for my kid to get out of school, and then I can go do this, and then I gotta wait until vacation time to go on vacation. We are so distracted, and they have us so focused on I just got to get by. I just got to get to the next day. I just got to get to this. I just got to get to that. And nobody's stopping. Nobody's stopping it. Nobody's stopping the machine. And nobody's stopping themselves personally by saying, I had enough. You know what? You know what? You guys do what you want to do. I'm going to be over here minding my own business. It's a funny thing. It's a real funny thing, right? So he was talking... Neil was talking about the Agenda 21. It started in 92, right? So here, Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally. It's crazy. Globally, nationally and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments and major groups in every area in which human impacts on the environment, right? So in other words, they're saying, well, you humans are the reason this is like this. No, we're not the reason this is like this. Agenda 21 is the Rio Declaration of Environment and Development and the Statement of Principles for the Sustainable, again, here we're using these words, sustainable management of forests were adopted by more than 178 governments in the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development. The UNC, like I said, they're just making these things up. UNCED held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. What does Rio de Janeiro, Brazil have to do with anything else around the globe? Shouldn't Rio de Janeiro be taking care of themselves? What the heck? So they meet there for what? What's that got to do with anything? The Commission of Sustainable Development, again, more abbreviations. They get everything to sound like nobody is smart enough to understand what the words are. They keep using these abbreviations. CSD, the Commission of Sustainable Development, created in December of 92 to ensure effective follow-up of it. What the heck is this? Another group, another agency to do what? To do nothing, to do absolutely nothing, to monitor and report on implementation of agreements at the local, national, regional, international levels. Well, which is it? Is it the local level? Is it the regional level? Is it national level? They don't even know because it's all made up. It's nonsense. And national, regional, international. It was agreed that a 5-year review of the Earth Summit progress would be made in 1997 at the United Nations General Assembly meeting. I didn't hear about it. Did you hear about it? I never heard about it. Nobody told nobody. It wasn't on the news. Nobody said nothing to nobody. Everybody just kind of nonsensical walking around just giving somebody a job to do nothing. right? The full implementation of Agenda 21, the program for further implementation of the Agenda 21 and the commitments. So they created another committee to make sure that the things that they were implementing were being implemented. Do we not see this, folks? Do we not understand that they take more money from us and call it taxes and do all these things because they create all these committees and these agencies to take money from us, to give somebody a job to do nothing, absolutely nothing, that they have no control over. No control over. You can't decide what the planet's going to do. You only think you can. You can create certain things like fires and pandemics and all those things to create an idea that there is something happening, when in actuality, they did it. The governments are the ones doing these things, right? So the full implementation of Agenda 21 and the commitments to the Rio principles. Rio? Come on now. Has anybody been down there? Does anybody know what that place looks like? Holy cow. Shouldn't Rio be taking care of Rio first and then worrying about everything else? I don't understand. Which in Rio was strongly reaffirmed at the World Summit on Sustainable Development. And again, more abbreviations for nothing. They're trying to make everybody seem like they're dumb. Like you're supposed to have to figure out what these initials are. WSSD. Who cares? Held in Johannesburg, South Africa in August through September. But this started in the 90s, and then all of a sudden, there we go, right? And this started in the 90s, and all of a sudden, then nobody heard anything. And then in 2002 in Johannesburg, they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hold on a second. You're a day late and $1 short at this point, right? That's too long ago. That's 10 years." You understand what I'm saying? It's a funny thing that they think that because they didn't do anything, absolutely nothing to help anything anywhere around the globe, they just were watching what was going on and then telling us it's our fault. Told us it's our fault. That's no good. So they create all these things. They ruin the economy. They ruin the idea of our labor on Labor Day. They tell us that we're the reason it is the way it is. And it's not. It's not at all. It's not even close. Not even close, folks. That's the truth right there. You heard? Listen to me. Labor Day here in the United States, right? It started in the late 1800s. And it's, believe it or not, the first celebration for May Day or Labor Day that what they had was in New York, right? They had a parade, and it was done by the Central Labor Union. Like I said before, they had labor unions here. They had one central labor union. Like, in other words, they were saying, as long as you are working, we want to make sure that you are not being taken advantage of. So they created a labor union, right? And it was just the labor union that was just there. It was organized by we the people until they did away with it. That's why there's no more locals for unions. They're all managed by the federal government now. Every union, look at my eyes, look at me. Every union here in this country is managed and controlled by the federal government. There are no more unions that are done privately. And I don't care what anybody says out there that you think your local is not being run by the government. It is. It is. 100%. Take my word for it. Believe me. Take that to the bank. Listen, that was in 1882. Then in 1888 in Chicago, they had the riots. Chicago had the riots because they were doing that whole thing in the late 1800s, right? So basically, bosses and companies and the government, if you work for the government, right, they were saying, well, yeah, just because you guys created a union doesn't mean you get to decide when you work, how you work, what the conditions are, and all those things. And then they had the riots in Chicago. And they were all peaceful riots. Every labor protest has started as a peaceful protest. And they all became violent. Not from the protesters. This is the way it works, folks. Protesters do not become violent unless, what? Coaxed. Unless provoked. That's how it is. That's the truth. 100%. All of them. Every protest starts out peacefully. People wanting to voice their frustrations. And then a protest. And then all of a sudden, The government sends in authority figures and said, well, you can't protest here, you can protest here. You can't say this in your protest, you can't do this in your a protest is a protest. It's because you are opposing what is happening and looking for, some kind of, reformation. Yeah, you want to feel good about what you're doing. It's just a funny way that a certain group of human beings that they call the government, that they think that other human beings that are the same as them, we're all human beings, we breathe the air the same, we bleed the same when we're hurt, like they say, don't I bleed the same, don't I breathe the same? It's the truth. And then they want to create new things as to why it's not that way. And that's no good. That's no good at all. So on this Labor Day, I tell everybody out there, please, try not to be laboring. And all you women out there, if you are pregnant, don't be in labor. Not today. So you don't have so much work to do. Okay, folks, that's really how it's working. But you know me. I have my everything news. That's my everything. I've said everything that I've had to say about this, right? And about Labor Day and what I think about what the government has done to us as far as labor and the way they treat us and what our labor's worth and how they used labor movements to create crushing economies, which is disgusting. I don't know how they did it. But on another note, here's the nothing news. And it's in relation to the idea of what this weekend means, right? It's Labor Day. And to me, the most useful tool I think that everybody on this planet uses, it's the most useful tool I think that everybody on the planet has used or will use in their lifetime, okay? And it's the broom. The broom, and it should be used to sweep up or sweep out these governments that are in place, really causing all this havoc, right? So the broom was invented in 1797 by a guy named Levi Dickinson. And he created this for, believe it or not, he created to make up a job easier for his wife. And I know people are like, oh, well, that's nice. He gave the wife the job. I said, well, this guy was probably out, building railroads, 16 hours a day, lumping a hammer and giant pieces of steel over his back. So he created the broom because, there was probably ways to sweep, but it was probably very, wasn't practical enough. So he created the broom with the broomstick, right? So it was made out of sorghum because he was growing sorghum at the time, right? Guy's running a farm, trying to feed his family, probably plus working. So the idea is he used these tassels from the sorghum grain and he created these brooms. And then he put a stick, he bound it with the sorghum stuff and put it on some kind of stick in order to make the job easier, right? So, and everybody knows sorghum's used as a sweetener as well. And it was, it was that, it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? So no waste. So the idea was he was growing sorghum anyway, and he figured, wow, this is a pretty cool idea, and he made the broom. And it's of course, the broom is still used to today. And it's used in, if you're a laborer in the union, or it's used in your house, or it's used anywhere. We all use them. It's a very, very productive, useful tool that anybody can use. And you know what? You don't need to learn how to use it. The only thing you need to have the broom work at any time is to have dirt or debris to sweep up. That's the truth. You don't need anything else. You just need the broom. Oh, folks, I digress on a constant basis. And I want everybody to know, my message, folks, and that's every day is a good day. And if you give a smile, you're going to get a smile. And give a bunch of them smiles out there, everybody. Happy Labor Day. And don't be laboring. Relax.